It was a flood no one around at the time will ever forget, and it all began on Valentine's Day.
And to watch the water continuing to move up the street, it was sort of you're awestruck, but the other aspect is what's going on here. I'm not directly impacted. I live in the higher ground, but you're watching and realizing what's stopping this.
Well, we have a house on the river in Guerneville, and we elected to stay the first night. We'd never been through a flood. We thought, big adventure, right? And downstairs, all the furniture was floating, the furniture that we hadn't carried up. And there was this intense smell of propane. The propane tanks had all been torn away. And so we were terrified to even light a candle. We just sort of sat there huddled in the dark. It was pretty memorable. And the next day, the guys on the ground wanted us to leave, come with them in the helicopter and leave the dog there, which was really not an option. So we had heard there were Navy SEALs in a raft that were taking people out, and eventually the SEALs showed up and said, "You want to go?" We said, "Yeah."
But I mean, going down the river, is anybody flown it yet?
Yeah, it's about 7 miles. It's about well, I don't know what your cruise speed is, but about 60 knots, 70 knots is 15 minutes.
Next trip out. We have Stephanie Merrill.
They called it a 100-year flood. But in the years ahead, North Bay residents would learn 100 years doesn't last as long as it used to. Fortunately, though, no one forgot what happened in 1986.
We had history. We had less than a decade, so there's a 100-year flood level. We'd hit it twice within a decade. I think people were to some extent, much better prepared in handling with it, dealing with it, and recognizing a little sooner that we got trouble.
The flood of '86 is a classic example of learning from experience. In other areas, though, it appears we're still learning. But looking back on the decade of news events, there is at least one conclusion you can draw. What may seem like a random series of events at the time helped shape our direction for the future. If you want a clear idea of who we are and where we're going, you first need to take a look at where we've been.